You know, at the Next Bite, we try to show you some new stuff, whether it's a new technique, maybe a twist on an old technique, maybe a new lure. Well, this time we're going to show you something completely new, and that is new lakes. These are basically lakes up in northeast South Dakota that didn't exist 15 or 20 years ago. And my buddy here, Dan Steer, who fishes tournaments with me, also guides all over here in South Dakota, and he says, you got to get over here because the fishing is just phenomenal. He said, we're fishing these lakes that flooded several years ago, and the walleyes are just thick in them. You're going to get all kinds of fish, but he had a few secrets he wanted to show me. So we're coming over here to northeast South Dakota, show you a little bit of slow death, show you some of Dan Steer's secret techniques for slow death, and we're going to show you how to get the next bite.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite.
There are 120 glacial lakes in the state of South Dakota. These pristine bodies of water range in size and shape, but all were formed over 20,000 years ago when the last of the receding glaciers passed through what is now northeast South Dakota, leaving behind them a wake of large craters that eventually filled with water, forming the glacial lakes.
Well, I just got into town being Webster, South Dakota, and I met up here with Doug Johnson. He's the owner of Sportsman's Cove. It's a great little bait shop here. They got hunting supplies and stuff, but they also have some lodging next door where we're going to be staying. But I was talking to Doug about the area here. You got a lot of new lakes out here, don't you?
You know, we must have at least 30 fishable lakes within a half mile of here. A lot of them were the old glacial lakes that existed since man civilized this area, but since the 90s, a lot of new fisheries have developed here.
So these are, a lot of them are only like 15 years old. How did the fish even get in them?
You know, some came out of the glacial lakes that spread out. A lot of them the Game and Fish and Parks would use as rearing ponds.
Okay.
They would plant in fry and then harvest out the fingerlings in the fall, and then what remained would sometimes turn into tremendous fishery.
And while anglers can find just about everything from largemouth to pike to panfish inhabiting these prehistorically shaped waters, walleyes are considered the predominant species for most sport
You
fishing.
swung it up there a little shallower and one just rocketed it.
Oh, I'm telling you, these fish fight extremely hard, shallow water.
He hammered it.
Any number of bait caster and live bait techniques will work on these glacial lakes.
Look at that one.
But South Dakota native and recent FLW champion Dan Steer has something else in mind.
They eat those shrimp in here, don't they?
Yes, freshwater shrimp, lots of perch base, but see the hump on the head here? They grow so fast, that's what causes that. These fish are extremely healthy from the freshwater shrimp.
I tell you what, them humpy head ones grow big too, don't they?
They do.
A technique that fellow professional tournament angler Keith Cavallez is all too familiar with.
Wally sandwich. Look at how he wanted that slow death.
Especially since he helped bring it from the Dakotas to store shelves across the nation.
Killer crawler strikes.
Except out here, he and Dan are putting some new spin on this staple spinning crawler setup.
So we're fishing the slow death tactic a couple different ways today. The one more traditional one is to use a real night crawler like this. Simply like always, we're going to string this on. Now it's key to try and get that hook point right close to the tip of the crawler. String them on. I like to go a little bit beyond the collar on the crawler. Push it out, pull the head of the crawler up over the eyelet, and then pinch this off maybe a ½ inch behind the crawler. All right, and you can see how that slow death hook actually forms that crawler, and then once we set it in the water, that's what's going to make it spin down there. So that's just standard slow death. A couple alterations I'm making because we've got so many fish here, small ones, perch, walleyes, I wanted to go with something a little bit more durable, so I'm using what's called a killer crawler. This is actually a crawler we had Berkley designed specifically for slow death. You can see it looks like a half of a night crawler. I'm going to string this on the same way, but before I do, I'm going to show you one little trick that we use to get this to spin a little bit better. It's called overbending. And all I'm going to do is simply take my slow death hook, and where the big hard turn is there, I'm going to bend it a little bit more. And that little bit of overbend just helps any artificials, whether it's the killer crawler, you can put on the 3-inch gulp fry, any kind of soft plastic. It'll actually form that plastic or that tail on this hook a little bit better and give it that good curl. So then after that, I'm going to just string it on the same way. This one you don't have to pinch anything off. You just leave about a 1/2 inch down there. One other little trick, if this doesn't spin quite right, especially with these artificials, simply slide that crawler up or down the line just a little bit. It'll form it a little bit different and really help out that spin.
The next bite is presented by Mercury, Amsoil, the first in synthetics, Tracker Boats, fish the finest, Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here, Berkley, catch more fish. Professional anglers Keith Cavias and Dan Steer could be cranking for these South Dakota Glacial Lake walleyes.
I got one! Dan Steer!
Hey, that rod's buckled over.
But the advantage is given by bottom bouncer fishing slow death.
Look what I caught him on!
Slow death.
And the killer crawler! Look at that thing in there!
Far exceed that of the longer lines that would be required to run crankbaits, helping make their approach along these weedy break lines more tactical.
Hey, wait a minute, that's the path I was gonna fish, man.
But even with a more attuned presentation,
You can have this path after I get done with it.
Okay, oh yeah.
there's even more yet that can be done to keep all 4 lines as productive as possible.
He works, right?
It's a good one. Good one.
Hit it hard?
He crushed it. These shallow fish are really aggressive and strong.
How shallow were we on that one?
Well, I slid up into about 9 foot.
He's probably ready to go back to them weeds, huh? Grow up just a little, young man. Grow up just a little and then come bite my line. I'll give you one little tip about fishing behind a really good fisherman like Dan. You know, as we come down these breaks and things, what I'm really paying attention to, trying to watch, is where is he putting his rods and what paths are his lures taking. Because he's a good enough fisherman, he's probably going to pick off those active fish as he comes through. So I'm like using a real long rod out here and this other rod and just watching where his baits are going, try and position my baits in a little bit different path. Hopefully we go by some different fish and I'll try and keep up with him. I mean, he is Dan Steer, for Christ's sake. He's a really good fisherman.
Oh, there's one, Keith.
Got one?
Got one.
Better?
Yeah, it's a nice one. I'm bringing her up there, young man.
Yeah, let me get extended here.
Yeah, there
Oh, yeah, there he is.
There's a dandy.
That's a nice chunker.
Here's a dandy fish here. I mean, this has lots of these 18, 19-inch fish. They're really fat. And the Old Faithful, slow death.
Slipped in a little bead on me there, didn't you?
You gotta have a little color, a little change, you know, and there's nice variations you can do with it. Gold, chartreuse, whatever, personal preferences, but it's just a big abundance of these 18, 19, 20, 21s, and we're gonna have a great time fishing today, I know that.
Real Deal. Real fishing information from real fishing experts. Presented by Amsoil.
Just got my line of ice rods. Many of you know that Keith Cavias and I designed a line of open water walleye rods for Bass Pro Shops. They've been around for like 15 years, one of the most successful lines of rods there is in the industry. Well, it was a natural to talk to Bass Pro again about ice rods, but even more important, we talked to the folks at Clam, the largest company in the ice world today. And we kind of all joined forces with the Next Bite crew, Clam, and Bass Pro to bring out this line of rods. They're called Walleye Weapons. They're really cool. They've got very lightweight but strong blanks, good backbone, nice soft tips. We've got 5 different sizes, starting with the little 24-incher. You'll use this rod when you're inside the fish shacks, the smaller shacks where you can't get the length of the rod. There's just not enough room in there, but yet you've got adequate backbone on this medium action rod to set the hook and play the fish. We've got a little bit more play in here. I like to use the 24, the 28, and the 32-incher. They're all medium action rods. I like to use these rods for walleyes inside the shack and a little bit smaller fish. Sometimes I'll even use them crappie fishing. They're nice and lightweight. You can do the overhand grip to them, and especially when you're fishing plastics, these are great rods for plastics. But yet, when we get out into the open, where you can use the longer rods, you can use the rods that are 36, 38, 40 inches long because you have the room, or if you're in a larger shack, or if you're fishing larger fish, ripping blade baits and things like that, we've got the backbone on these larger rods. Good stiff backbone, but yet nice soft tips for playing the fish. You've got good, real hard foam grips so that the sensitivity transfers throughout the whole length of the rod. You can see we've got the Next Bite logo on the rods. The reels also are called the Next Bite Walleye Weapon Reels. They're small, infinite anti-reverse, big anti-reverse button, so if you get a big fish on, you can back reel, real easy to get to with your gloves. For storing your rods, there's a click over handle lock so it folds over and you can get them into your storage boxes as you're transporting. So if you want a really good premium set of ice rods, Clam, the Next Bite, and Bass Pro have them.
About the only thing with more bite than these South Dakota Glacial Lake walleyes is starting to be the wind.
I'll give your weathermen one thing, they're very consistent out here. When they say 10 to 15, you add them together and that's what you get out here.
Thankfully, higher boat speeds aren't really an issue in this particular presentation of Slow Death.
Keith, I got a real good one there. After taking the monsoon wave.
Where Keith and Dan are able to control their lines and lures against both the weeds or changing wind speeds.
I'm going to try to spin the boat up into the wave here so we come to the side a little better. All right. This wind's kind of a little difficult.
Thanks to matching their line lengths to the total weight they're using on their bottom bouncers.
Here he comes.
There he is. I got him.
I got him. Oh, you must have been right next to the weeds. Got little weeds on the hook too.
This wind's a little difficult up here, but those fish love weeds and you gotta burn a little weed to get them, but
we're kind of right on the edge of the weeds, aren't we?
Right.
Yeah. I figured that out already.
Just another quality fish. The majority of fish that we're marking, the nice fish we're marking, have been on 14 to 16 feet of water. We haven't been having much luck catching those fish, but as soon as we bump up into the base of the weed line in about 8 to 9 feet of water, those seem to be our aggressive fish. You don't mark as many, but the ones that are up there are the biters. So we've been focusing on the 8 to 9 foot. We'll bump out to 14 to 16 and come back into the break line. Some of the keys to the bottom Slow Death that I like to use, I like to use a lot more speed. A lot of people pull at 0.6, 0.8, 0.9. I myself, I like to go like 1.2 and as fast as 1.5. Which that does for me, I can cover more ground and it helps give me a reaction bite. And what also really I like that it does, it takes away the smaller fish. When you go slow, the smaller fish grab on, you get a lot of deep hook, a lot of gut hook fish, and it's hard to release those fish. So when you get faster, you can target the bigger fish. They're better hooked on towards the end of the mouth more instead of gut hooked. And when I'm doing that, is you want to keep your line angle at a 45-degree angle. So when you add more speed, you got to add more weight to your bottom bouncers. You want to fish at a 45-degree angle. So for example, I use a 1.5 ounce weight. That seems to be, when I'm fishing at 10 to 15 feet of water, that seems to get me to the desired angle of the line for my presentation. So keys to bottom bouncer, or slow depth fishing, is speed, depth, and bottom bouncer weight control. Once you get those down, you're going to catch lots of fish.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a good one.
There's a dandy.
Oh yeah.
Of course, you're moving 100 miles an hour here.
That's all right, huh? Get them up to you. Oh yeah, good fish. Very nice.
Fish.
Now that's good fish. It's that action, it's that wave action, that working it, you know.
Well, just living proof that Slow Death, it just
barely had him.
Awesome way to catch fish.
Isn't that a good fish?
That's a beautiful fish there. Look at the nice colors to him. Golly.
I like it. You know, and he fought hard. I mean, he's not a monster fish, but there's in this warm water, fairly shallow, they certainly fight good. I like it. I like it, Dan Steer.
Nice fish. Nice
and
fish.
there's that wave action. I'm going to use it, man. I'm going to use it.
amazing information on tackle and techniques to make you a better fisherman. Presented by Mercury.
In treble hooks, the Mustad Triple Grip for years has been one of the most popular choices for a bunch of anglers for a few reasons. The inward bend of that hook has kept fish on. Also, the strength and durability has been second to none. Whether you're pulling crankbaits like a Berkley Flicker Shad or trolling open water spinners where a lot of guys like to tie a treble hook on the back of that. Now, in the past few years, you've actually seen the KVD Triple Grip hook, a new hook from Mustad, come out. You know, there's a few changes that they've made to that hook. One being, it goes from a 20-degree hook angle to a 12-degree. Now what that does for you is it maintains that inward bend, but gives you a little bit larger hook gap, which is good for your hooking percentages. But that hook, that KVD hook, has always been a little bit strong in wire. It's been a little bit heavy for guys that want to fish, you know, say like a smaller crankbait like this, or even maybe going ice fishing. Just a little bit too heavy for those small, subtle presentations. So there's a new hook that Mustad just came out with, and it's the TG58. So this hook actually has those same attributes I was talking about with that KVD treble, that 12-degree bend, but now it has the lighter wire diameter. It's available in all the same sizes, so just use the size you typically would, but now you get all those great characteristics in a brand new triple grip.
Keith Cavaias and Dan Steer have narrowed this higher speed bottom bouncer with slow death presentation right down to some custom color specifics.
Oh,
Killer crawlers.
They're coming into their own.
You know, I had a more of a natural, the natural color they call it on there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't catching many, and then I put on this one that's got like the two-tone brown in it. It's
coming alive. Oh, there's one, Keith.
Good one.
Feels pretty nice.
I can get a net for a nice fish. Staying down. Staying down is a good thing.
That's a nice fish.
Bouncer. Oh yeah, good fish.
There he is, Keith, get him.
Nice fish, Dan. Right up to you, man. Right up to you.
Good job. Slow death, killer crawler. Unbelievable how good it worked.
How about that magic gold bead you got sitting in front
That's
of
the
us?
secret gold bead. Quiet now.
So even if it's to each his own at this point in the pattern for the pros, when fishing a newer or vastly undiscovered body of water like one of South Dakota's 100-plus glacial lakes, how can you elevate the details on the structure side of your fishing as well?
When you're out slow depth fishing or any kind of structure fishing, one of the things that can be real helpful for you is to have a good mapping unit that shows you the contours, because it just makes it that much easier to see when a point or a cup's coming up and follow those contours real precisely. Now, one of the problems with these brand new lakes is that a lot of times they aren't mapped out real well. In fact, if you look at the map that comes with the unit here, you can see my boat position actually shows us that we're on land, which we obviously are not here. So what you want to do is get a newer chip. The one I'm going to put in here is called the Lake Insight HD chip. It's the newest one by Lowrance. It's got a whole bunch of maps all over the country on it, but it does have this lake that we're on right here. So I'm going to just simply slide it into my unit here. And you'll see right away the unit just picks up that it's in there, and it'll say that it's updating the charts. So once it's updated the charts, all of a sudden we see that this lake is expanded quite a bit over that original map. But what's most important to us is where the fish seem to be holding is on the breaks just outside of this, what was land, which is now weed beds, and the adjacent weed beds to that. So these are all the mossy, stringy weeds up here. What we want to do is hold just outside of that in about 10, 12 feet of water, maybe even up to 8 feet of water, and move along here. So having contours is a great aid when you're out here doing the structure fishing like we are with the slow death today. But sometimes on these new lakes, you're going to need a new chip to get the newest information. Oh, there's a good one. You're kind of turning around that corner. My bottom bouncer went dead and then it went hard. Look at him. Really a nice hook.
Baby.
Look at the slow head shake on that fish.
Oh, yeah.
I'm liking the looks of this, Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a big boy.
That's a good fish.
That's a dandy.
Come on now. There he is, Dan.
Yeah! Look
There's a good one.
Ooh, baby!
He ain't the chunkiest in the world, but he's nice and long. Look at him.
Hey, look at there. It's got a tag on it.
What the heck? Look at
that.
I've never seen a tag like that. That's kind of cool, isn't it?
South Dakota Game Fishing Perks are kind of monitoring the fish here. Look at that.
All these new lakes, I got to figure out what these fish are doing.
Slow death rules, baby. Slow death rules.
It does. I tell you what a great trip this is. I mean, to get to come out in basically a brand new lake, you know, it's only 10 years old or whatever, and catch, I think, brand new walleyes pretty much. Many of these probably have never even seen a hook come by them. So it's really cool deal. But look at here, yeah, he's tagged there. Maybe we'll write down the number there and see what South Dakota Fish and Game is. But hey, thanks for the great trip, man.
Absolutely.
It's always fun fishing with you. And
Absolutely.
we'll get right down this tag and get him back in the water.
Nice. Keith Gavayas!
Dan Steer!
Take me fishing! Hey Keith!
Hey Dan!
Long time! Got some room for me today?
I want to know about this steer death deal. Whenever I see your smiling face, I have to smile myself. Because I love you. Man, he just had that big old dead stick just doubled over.
Ah, slow down.
Yeah, but look what it's on. Killer crawler.
Killer crawler, there's living proof. That works.
Long rod.
The Next Bite would like to thank Dan Steer of Dan Steer's Guiding and Doug Johnson of Sportsman's Cove of Webster, South Dakota. Bait, ammo, licenses, all of your hunting and fishing needs in the heart of South Dakota's glacial lakes.